In this lesson, we're going to be using the Add menu for animation with our path. Okay, so what we need to do here is to look at what we have set up for our path right now. And right now it is a Illustrator native layer. But as pretty much as of CS6, I'm pretty sure it was CS6, they came out with a new way to be able to convert things that you made in Illustrator to an After Effects native layer type. And this is creating a shape from a vector layer. So the way that you do this is you select the layer that you want to change. And that's going to be our plane path layer. So we'll right click it. And then you're going to come up to create shapes from vector layer and click that. And now what happens is it creates a shape based on the information from that vector layer. And I'm just going to bring it back down here, and it puts it at the top of your stacking order. So that's why we moved it down. So now they're right on top of each other, and we have the After Effects native layer type, which is going to be a shape layer, and we have the plane path, which is the Illustrator layer. So this is great that it does this for you. It's automatic conversion, and also every single thing that you changed, if it had keyframes, if you know the rotation and placement, that's all still there. It doesn't just kind of convert back to where that original started. It takes it based off the information that you've added in After Effects to that Illustrator layer and converts it from that point. So now what I'm going to do is actually delete the original Illustrator layer because we don't need that anymore. So if you select that and hit backspace, it's gone. And now we only have the plane path outlines layer that is the native After Effects shape layer type. And because we have that shape layer type, we can use the Add menu to add a special kind of animation that is only available to shape layers. So if I toggle this down, you see the Add menu exists right here. And what we're going to be using, if we click that little flyout, is the Trim Paths. And actually, I'm going to scroll this down so that it pops that upward so you can see it. Trim Paths is located right here. And what it does is it almost acts as a mask. But because it's After Effects native information now, we don't have to draw the mask. It just looks at what the path exists as, and we can go from there. So if I bring up if I toggle that up and we come down here, let's see, I think this has been applied under, let's see where Trim Paths was added. We'll just pull this up a little bit more. And I'm not really seeing it, so it's possible that it did not get added. So let's make sure that we do it this time just with plane path outlines, add, choose trim paths. There it is right there. Okay, and that's trim paths 1. So we'll go ahead and toggle this down, and I'm going to bring this back so that we can see our composition and scroll down to this again. So right now this is at 100%, and if I take the end property all the way down to 0, this is where we want to start from. We don't want to see any of those dotted lines. So with our current time indicator right here at the very beginning, I'll go ahead and set a keyframe with this at 0%. And I can do it at 0% because earlier when we positioned this line, it started from right there. So that's important. Then I'm going to drag this all the way out here. And we're just kind of zooming in using our middle mouse wheel there. And make sure that your current time indicator is all the way at the end. And then we're going to drag this up. But we don't want to drag it all the way to 100 because that means it's going to be stroked all the way to the end. And this is a little bit longer than what we need because, you know, you might not know exactly how long you need it to be. So it's better just to have it be a little bit bigger than necessary. So if I pull this back down, I want this number to land right about where those dots start to exit. So looks like I'm at 55% there. Let's try 56. And that might be pretty close. If we're at 55.5, looks like it takes one away. So 56 is perfect. Okay, so now that we have that set up, let's go ahead and do a scrub to see that following along with our plane. And it looks like it's pretty close. It starts out pretty good, and then the gap gets larger and larger. So we need this to be a little bit of a higher number. Let's try 57. And I'm just going to scrub back very slightly. Closer. Let's try 58. And that looks pretty good. It's okay if the dotted line goes up underneath the plane a little bit. It still looks like the dots are being revealed by the plane, which is what we want. We just don't want it to overshoot the plane and come out the nose. Perfect. So 58% is just what we want. And this is starting to look really pretty. So I'm going to hit 0 on my number pad, and we'll watch this RAM preview through and see it play back, just so we can kind of watch our handiwork, see what's going on here. And I think it's looking really, really nice. We've added a lot of elements that are very subtle, but add a lot to the overall animation. Just by those clouds moving a little bit faster, you really get a sense of the depth that we've created using only 2D layers. And I think that that little dotted line is also a really nice touch. Okay, so now what we want to do is to move on to our next lesson, where we're going to start talking about keyframe interpolation. And this is really important once you start learning about how animation works, and how to get the most out of your animation. So we're going to start with a very small example, and then later throughout the volumes that we're using here, we'll jump more into how keyframe interpolation works much later on throughout these quick starts. But in this case, we're going to do a really simple animation in our next lesson for these train tracks. We're going to add a train to those train tracks you see there, and have it kind of be going faster and then slow in as it begins to stop at the end of the tracks. So we'll learn how to create an animation that has a difference in its speed over time in our next lesson.